Prepare to be amazed as we uncover the most satisfying petty revenge tales from around the internet.
Here's some background. I was with my ex for almost 4 years. He was a good guy up until a year before we broke up, when he started cheating on me. When we finally broke up, I was able to get some revenge. 1 year for Christmas, I got him a used PS4. We set up our accounts in such a way that mine was the parent account and his was the child, so he could play my games. Another feature of this setup was that the parent account can lock the child account out of playing. He knew this when we set it up and said it didn't bother him. When we broke up, he refused to stop playing the games I bought for me on my account, claiming he couldn't stop. Soon after that, I locked everything on his account. His account will automatically log out if he tries, and he can't do anything to stop it. Before anyone says anything, I paid for everything when it came to that console. All of his games, his membership, everything. He was unemployed for most of our relationship and never paid for his own things. And Jay, if you ever read this, F you. I was a grocery checker in the 90s. One day around noon, I was working the 10 items or less cash-only express line that was used by many people who were just grabbing a quick sandwich for lunch, so it was important to keep out people who had carts full of groceries. There was one other regular check stand open across from me that had one person being checked out with a large cart full. I didn't have anyone in my line at the time. Karen pulls up to the other check stand with a heaping cart and notices me standing there. She asks if I can check her out. I tell her, no, I'm sorry, I have to be available for people grabbing lunch. Over the next 30 seconds, she just stared at me and then pulled her cart up to my check stand and started putting all of her things on my check stand and says, "You're not doing anything, you can check me out." So I was kind of stuck. I tried to check her out as fast as I could and didn't say much. And wouldn't you know it, pretty soon I had a line of about 5 people standing there with their sandwiches and Cokes glaring at me. Remember, it was a cash lane, so as I am finishing her order, Karen takes out her checkbook and writes a check. Mind you, she didn't start writing it until I was about done, which means more delay. This was her big mistake. Her address was on the check. So on my lunch break, I got the subscription cards from all the magazines and proceeded to subscribe her to just about every magazine we carried, and I always checked the 2 years, bill me later option. I even signed her up for the Columbia Music Club, and I picked the worst records. Weeks later, when she started getting all of the mags and bills for them, there is no way she would connect it to the checker she was rude to. I was probably one in a long string of cashiers she was rude to. I was traveling from Edinburgh to London by train and had a booked window seat with a table. I got on the train to find 4 guys sitting at the table. The one in my seat that was clearly marked as booked refused to move as he was with his friends and the train was packed. The ticket collector passed and I asked him to help. He asked the guy to move, but he refused, and somehow that was that. "So what now?" I asked. "You can find another seat, but I have no power to move him. Only the police can move him, and they will not turn up just to move someone out of a seat." The train conductor said there were no seats free in the carriage and probably not many free on the train, so standing to London was a possibility. I told him that I'm going to take a seat in first class. The conductor argued that I can't sit there because I don't have a booking. I just answered, well, you could call the police to move me, but apparently they won't turn out to move someone out of a seat. I had a lovely trip with power for my laptop and a wide, comfy seat.
One day, I found myself craving a specific wine for the upcoming holidays. The closest Total Wine store that stocked it was a 60-mile drive away. Despite the stormy weather, I decided to make the trip to the store I used to frequent before moving 2 counties away. When I arrived, I picked up the wine and some other items for holiday parties, spending about an hour browsing the store. As I approached the checkout, the cashier requested my ID. After examining it, she asked for the ID of the person I was with. Confused, I told her I was alone. She called the assistant manager to handle the situation. Rather than resolving the issue, he made a snide remark about my youthful appearance and suggested that I return the next day alone. Still irritated by the encounter, I went to a different Total Wine store the following day, where the staff was friendly and didn't even ask for my ID. Despite this, I couldn't shake off the negative experience from the first store. After submitting a complaint, I received a call from the store manager. Instead of offering an apology or understanding, she was rude and condescending, insisting that their policy applied to anyone entering the store at the same time as me. Fueled by anger and seeking revenge, I decided to exploit their online policies to teach them a lesson. I placed a massive $10,000 order for the soonest possible pickup time. I carefully selected the items, ensuring that I ordered cheap, heavy bottles and popular items in small quantities, creating a logistical nightmare for the store. My goal was to take up as much space as possible in their curbside pickup area and force the staff to scramble around collecting individual items. To my surprise, they managed to prepare the order and sent me multiple reminder emails to pick it up. On day 10, the manager called, inquiring when I would be collecting the order. In a cheeky response, I informed her that I had already picked up the same items at another store, as I was told I looked too young at her location. I could hear how furious she was, and I casually responded, "Nope," before she hung up the phone. Left with no choice but to issue a huge refund, the store was forced to explain the situation to their higher-ups. In the end, I had the satisfaction of making them pay for their poor customer service while teaching them a valuable lesson in treating customers with respect. There was a young woman, let's call her Miss Entitled, who only got her job because her dad was golf buddies with the company's CEO. She had a knack for blaming her team for her countless mistakes while taking credit for their hard work. I used to do trade shows, and after the fall season, I'd create a comprehensive report on the results, usually 15+ pages long. The higher-ups always preferred paper reports, so I'd print and distribute them personally. As I handed Miss Entitled her copy in the corridor, I watched in disbelief as she marched straight into the CEO's office, claiming she had put the report together for him, even though it was all about trade shows and she wasn't even in the same department. Seeing this as an opportunity for revenge, I followed her in and told her my report had some errors and that I needed it back to make corrections, all while giving the CEO a knowing look. As I left, I heard the CEO ask me to close the door behind me. Miss Entitled came out a few minutes later, looking as red as a tomato. I couldn't resist asking, "How was your little chat with the boss?"
2 years ago, my husband, a talented and well-respected remodeler, passed away. During his career, he often hired Kiki, the adult daughter of my good friend of 42 years, Amy, to assist him on his larger projects. Little did he know, Kiki had a habit of borrowing his expensive tools and equipment for her own use, only to return them broken, missing vital parts, and with a laundry list of excuses. Among the items she destroyed were a portable CD player, a pair of channel locks, a winch and come-along, a table saw, a chainsaw, a Graco cart paint sprayer, and an air compressor with a nail gun. Over time, Kiki's negligence cost my husband a staggering $5,000 in losses. The final straw came when he caught her red-handed, stealing from a client, leading him to sever all professional ties with her. Fast forward to last September when I paid a visit to Amy, only for Kiki to confront me about her so-called promised inheritance from my late husband. I was taken aback, as we had never discussed leaving her anything. In fact, I knew for certain that my husband hadn't intended to leave her anything because we had spent the 8 years of his terminal illness discussing his wishes after his death, and he had even gifted specific items to friends before he passed away. With Amy's support, I hatched a plan to teach Kiki a lesson while clearing out the clutter of broken tools that filled our shed. The next day, Amy and I meticulously gathered all the damaged tools Kiki had returned over the years, including the high-end paint sprayer, the expensive table saw, the chainsaw, the air compressor with its nail gun, and even the shattered CD player she'd borrowed. We loaded everything into the car and dropped them off at Kiki's apartment. Bewildered, Kiki demanded to know what she was supposed to do with the pile of broken equipment. With a triumphant grin, I told her to do whatever she had expected my husband to do with the tools when she had returned them in such a sorry state. Now Kiki is the proud owner of a collection of useless, broken tools, and I've managed to reclaim valuable space in what is now my tool shed, all while teaching her a lesson she won't soon forget. Enjoyed the video? Please don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon for more entertaining stories.